Hey everyone, welcome back to Play the Game HQ. I'm Allison, this is Daniel, and we are looking at Dawn of Ulos, which is a new game coming from Thunderworks Games, and it's going to Kickstarter. This game is the dawn of the world of Ulos, yes, which is the role-player world, which we have fallen in love with cartographers, with role-player.
Yeah. All of the Thunderworks games, except for unless Cape May and Tenpenny Parks, they're in a different part of Ulos that is a little more developed than this world.
Now
but otherwise, yeah.
We only know some of the characters for the games that we played. Mm-hmm. We've not played through the role player world yet, as far as the adventures and things like that.
Well, now before we get into this, and I did reach out to Thunderworks about this because what you will notice on this, and I can understand how this was an oversight in the playtesting stage because it only became apparent when we tried to look at it on camera, which you are probably noticing now, is it is a tile laying game. And you cannot see the tiles from this overhead camera. It is impossible.
This is a complete game.
Yes, this is a finished game. It is virtually impossible on the overhead camera to differentiate the tiles because you lay them on the matching terrains. Mm-hmm. So to differentiate the tiles from the terrain under them and the tiles from the map. I reached out to them to see if they were aware of that, and they sent me a rendering of what they're working on, but long story short, they are aware of it. Mm-hmm. So that is being addressed. Obviously, there's nothing we can do about it for this video, but in the final version, there will be a way either with some color differences or right now they're working on putting a border around the edges of the tiles so that when you lay it on the board, there's a very clear way to differentiate the tiles from the board. So now, that personally, is being worked on.
I think they should do with the map that's already out there, it should be like a muted version of the colors.
Trying to influence
I really am.
Now
listen, I really think that way the tiles that are placed are vibrant.
They pop.
They pop, but you don't have this border. I really think the border is going to interfere with the map looking of the game. Mm-hmm. I think if the original board, if you lay that out there, it is muted. That way the new tiles that are actually out there for the terrain, I just think it will really...
I agree. So Thunderworks team, that is our design suggestion. No charge for that. You get that as no consultation fee. That's yours to run with. So Dawn of Ulos is a tile laying game. It is at first appearance an area control game, and first appearances are sometimes
deceiving.
Very wrong. So this is not an area control game. It is an area manipulation game. And it takes a while to get used to that just concept of the game. You are playing the roles of gods that are trying to gain favor with the different factions of the land. There's 10 factions included. They all have a nice chunky little
it's not little.
polyomino, little compared to us.
Oh, okay.
Little polyomino
miniature
that has a miniature and it has two different terrain types on it. So during the game, you are going to be laying tiles on the board and placing these factions on the board to control the areas on the tiles that you have laid. And each faction has two different types of terrain that it likes. So the rat folk like the desert land and the plains. The satyrs like the plains and the forests. Some of them like mountains. The frogkins like to be next to water.
The frogkins we didn't play those our first game.
Yeah.
The second game when we played those, because you only play 5 factions at a time during the game. So the frogkins were really cool because it wasn't the terrains that they were owning. My vocabulary
it's not the ones they're owning.
Right. It's what the water that they're next to because they like to be around water. And so I don't know, placing them at
it's harder to get them points.
Yeah, when you place them out originally, it wasn't around a whole bunch of water. And that's I told you, I was like, I wouldn't have put them there because I know that they're not going to succeed. They won't become legendary because they didn't really have a chance. Yes. So that was a unique perspective too with that different faction.
And what does legendary mean?
Oh yeah.
So you are going to be playing these tiles, trying to build this area that is controlled by the different factions. And as you play tiles and give them more area, they're going to move up on the strength track. Everyone starts out as lost, meaning they don't have any area that they control.
The frogkin is currently lost.
Yes. So as you give them tiles, they're going to move up on this track for how many tiles of their preferred terrain they control. So the elf is sitting right here. The elf likes the forest and the plains. So they only have one forest tile. So their strength is only one. Or
their strength is
3.
They
control one tile, even though they have other tiles, and it's tiles that are visible. So there is a plane underneath here. That doesn't count because it's not visible. So as they move up, you move them up based on the tiles that they control of their preferred terrain type. And then they gain strength. And this little fist icon is their strength. It goes all the way up to 10 as they control 15 tiles. And then the spoils, when you play a card for its ability, you get spoils, which are in the form of favor tokens. And at the end of the game, you're trying to have the most favor with like combined favor from all of the factions.
And now strength is really important because strength comes in play when it comes to purchasing those cards because you pay the amount of the strength that they currently have, and you get that with favor.
Yes.
That he said. But then also strength comes into play when there is a conflict.
Yes, and conflicts are like the key screwing things up element of the game. That's the best way that I can say it.
The puppeteer aspect of the gods.
So again, it looks, when you're looking at this, it looks really, let me pick a faction and just like buy into a faction, and that is the faction that I'm going to control. But if you lay a tile that connects those two areas of any two factions, and you have to lay tile on terrain that matches, but I don't have to, or no, I do. So let's say I put this tile right here. And again, it's really hard to see, but these tiles right here are controlled by the satyrs. So if I put this tile here, that would connect the satyrs and the elves. We would place this tile upside down because it doesn't add any strength because it's now created a conflict. You would then, everyone would look at their cards that they've been buying and building up their stash of cards, and you are going to vote and contribute cards to that conflict. Now, the base strength is over here. So the satyrs have a base strength of 8, the elves have a base strength of 3, and then every card contributed adds 1 strength. And everyone, not just the person who initiates it, everyone in the game can contribute cards. And you can also bluff. Like you can contribute cards that aren't part of that conflict. As the person who started the conflict, you have to say who is attacking who because that's the tiebreaker. But you contribute cards, whoever has the most strength. Again, each card counts as 1 plus their base strength. Whoever has the most strength wins the conflict, and so assuming that the satyr, because they are so much stronger, the elves are going to lose. They're going to come back here. This gets flipped over, and you would adjust the strength accordingly, which the satyr likes plains and prairies. So they would have gained 2 strength in addition, so they would move up to 11.
And then the elves would move.
The elves are now lost.
They go down here to lost. Now, if they didn't lose, because the elves were down here, their cards were only only cost 2. So people could have been stocking up. And I could have, say I had a bunch of them. I was like, well, I don't want them to lose. So I could have put forth a lot, and they could have added up their strength as well.
Yeah.
But then you also, with the cards that you put out, you return half rounded up back to supply, gaining the favor of those.
Yes. So you are, it's a real, like, there's a lot of conflict. Like I said, you're returning half of the cards that you play in a conflict back to the deck. So you're returning cards that you may have bought for cheap, but are now in those satyr cards cost. At that point, they were 8 strength. Like and if the satyr wins, you're now giving away cards that are stronger. So there's a real conflict in like, which cards do I play? Do I bluff? How much of these do I want to keep? Because at the end of the game, you score based on the cards in your hand. You score for every factions you have cards for. Wherever they are on the track, you score their strength times the number of cards. If anyone ever makes it up to 15 tiles, they become legendary, they get flipped over. And any faction that has ever been legendary adds 2 points per card. So in that situation, I may have a bunch of cheap elf cards that I've been stocking up on, and the styers or the satyrs are going to have to spend, or may have to spend, a lot of cards to protect their area, but then they have fewer cards to score. So it was I have not played a game like this. Like I've played area control games, I've played tile laying games. I have not played like that type of game where there's that conflict of like, again, it's not area control, it's area manipulation. You are manipulating the map so that you end up with the most points at the end of the game.
There is a very delicate balance.
The point of every game is to have the most points.
There's a delicate balance of, really the cards are the essence of the game, because that is, you are basically investors. As gods, you are investing in these factions, being like, okay, I really want to see them succeed. So I'm going to put forth a lot of investment into these. Yeah. And so there's a delicate balance of purchasing the cards to spend for their abilities, because they each do have a unique ability that can help kind of wean and wane throughout the game and your turn. Or holding on to them because you see that they are getting up there in their value. And it's like, do I want to hold on to these? So that's like, there's a few times where the Frogkins were way down here. Their cards were not worth a lot. So I was investing a lot in them while they were young in their territory ownership. And then I was looking at where they were at to be like, okay, how can I, now that I have like 5 or 6 of their cards, how can I start investing in them and being like, okay, this is now your terrain. So I was trying to stretch them out after I'd already invested in them. But then I was also like, I really like their ability. So do I use their card, gain the favor of spending the card and utilizing that ability? So there is just that delicate balance. I really, really enjoyed that.
And that is the turn structure. You place a tile. If that brings someone or creates a conflict, you resolve that. If there's ever if this character, the elves are off the board, if I ever put a tile somewhere that they could fit, that's not connected to anyone else, they would go back on the board. And then you can either play a card for its ability. So that, let's say I played this satyr card, for every 2 satyr strength, gain a faction card from any lost faction. So
they have a strength of 11.
Their strength is 8.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I could get 4 faction cards from a lost faction, which is currently the elves and the Frogkins. So I could get 2 of each. I could get 4 of one, 4 of the other. I would return this to the deck, and then I would also get the spoils. So I would gain 6 favor for that. So there is so much strategy in this. And there's 10 different factions that all have different strategic abilities. Some of them come into play during the conflicts. Most of them are during the action phase of your turn. But yeah, you have to choose to either play a card for its ability or to buy up to 3 cards. And then you draw a tile and your turn's over.
So which of these factions with their abilities did you prefer?
The satyrs are really strong. The rat folk, for every 3 rat folk strength, take 1 development tile from the supply and place 1 tile. In this last game, that really helped because at the end, they were legendary.
Peyton used that when he played, and he got to place 3 different tiles during that turn. 4, really counting his first, and it really impacted the game. And I was like, that was good. And then he got 7 favor by spending it, and I was like, that was really cool. I like, they're not on the board now, but the Shecky, which the Groot. I love Groot. If Marvel fans, they look like they're just this tree.
They're the tree people.
And what I really liked about their ability is for every 2 strength that they had, you could move a tile. It had to stay in the same ownership of whatever faction it was, but you didn't have to, you could move it and didn't have to worry about the tile underneath it. You could ignore placement rules. And that's because you'd have to place this, I'd have to place that there.
Yeah, it has to go over the terrain of the tile.
Or I could have placed it here and ignore the placement rules. I really thought that was valuable.
Especially towards the end of the game when you're getting down to I have these, I have invested all in the flayers, and I don't want someone I've invested in the flayers and the rat folk are 1 tile away from connecting that, and Allison may be stocked up on rat folk, and I really don't want her to do that.
Protect them.
Yeah, so I'm going to spend my Shecky card to let's just bring these over here, maintain the same strength, but let's just create some buffer. Yeah, create some distance, get a little privacy fence going on. So it was a really, really unique, just the push and pull of I want to build up, but also I'm going to build these guys up and then I'm going to stab them in the back because I've been building them up so that and buying all these cheap cards, and I've really been building them up so that I can easily knock them out and steal all of their territory. Because
There's a few times I feel like we did that.
I definitely did that. I did that in our last game with the Frogkins and the Satyrs. They were up here. I built up the Frogkins intentionally. I built them up with a big territory of forests, which scored them no strength.
That's why.
So they stayed down at 3. I think they had 3. So they had 5 strength. So they had very little strength. I kept the Satyrs cheap. I bought as many satyr cards as I could, and then I connected them.
You stole one from me.
Yeah, then I stole one from you.
He had a rift
and
tile.
then I connected those 2 territories. I played the satyr cards, and then I played my 1 elf card, which let me return 1 fewer card to the supply when returning cards in a conflict for every 2 elf strength. So remember, when you play cards in a conflict, you have to return half of the cards you play rounded up. So that let me keep more satyr cards
Oh, smart.
I knew because of just math. You can see how many cards other people are playing. You can't see what those cards are until you commit.
You do keep that secret.
But I knew that I was going to win that because I could see how many cards Allison was playing, and I was able to get most of those cards back. So it was just this, like, there were so many different elements that went into that also could have been screwed up because we were playing a 4-player game, and anyone else could have been like, here, I'm just going to make the satyr stronger, and then I couldn't afford it. Like, there were tons of different things that you were watching with higher player counts. I think we played with the boys our last game.
We did.
They were learning that. It was their first game. They picked up really quick, but it was still kind of working their way through understanding the way it plays.
It was so, I mean, Peyton is 9, Jared is 13, but the scores were so level.
It was 106 to 99 to 98 to 90.
Like,
it was
I was
tight
shocked.
game. Yeah.
And
again,
I liked it. Didn't feel like it played shorter, but I think it does.
Yeah.
I mean, the boys, they had a little bit of analysis paralysis.
Each Flair card and each Rat Folk card was worth 12 points. So that we were from top to bottom within 16 points, but the 3 of us were within 9 points. Like, it was,
we held on to.
It was a really close game and could have very easily, again, if someone had been able to take on the Rat Folk at the end of the game, take over their territory, they come down to 0. They still have 1 strength, and you would still get 2 because they were legendary. Yeah. And even if you get knocked out after you've become legendary, you still maintain your legendary status. But it was, I think, playing with a group of adults, or even just the kids,
and the boys were fun.
A group of people who have played it multiple times each and really understand the nuance of the strategy. I think this could be one of those, just like a lot of, not even really take that, but just
a unique tension.
There's a lot of tension because you have very little control over what other people are going to do, and you need to build up, like, the areas for the people you have, but it can so easily create a conflict. And then you're in this, like, how many cards am I willing to give up? And if I give up all my cards, then I don't, like, even if they win, then I have way fewer points at the end because I gave up all my good cards.
Yeah. Now, something there's one thing I felt like was a little lacking, and it wasn't lacking. I just think it would have added some little flair to the game. Because there are
what this is.
You don't. I didn't tell you. There are 5 gods that you get to choose from. It's up to 4 players. But I kind of wish the gods, because they have really awesome flavor text with them, that's like who they are and what they do in the world of Ulos. I wish that the factions had unique abilities.
Or the god character. So,
right, even if it's just a one-time
game. And you pick a god character that you are going to play, but really that's only function as a player reference.
Right.
So yes, I thought the same thing. I wish the characters that you picked at least gave you something. Like you said, even if it's a once or twice ability, I think that would add a lot, like add at least a little bit of variety where it just adds something.
Even if it's a one-time,
it makes it a non-binary where everyone is doing the exact same thing.
Right. It just, again, add a little bit more tension. Now, there is something that I haven't played yet and I need to, and that is the solo variant. And that adds the god. He is how would you pronounce this? Ylrir?
Ylrir?
He is a god of wayward souls. He's, again, in the storyline, it adds to it, but he has his own cards, and this is the solo play for the enemy. So he has his action cards, and during his turn, you add them to his board here, and he does different things to mess things up. And I'm like, ooh, that's cool. I just took a good look at it, and I haven't played it yet, so I need to play that and really get my opinion on it. So I'm excited about this one, so I want to play that.
Yeah, so all in all, I thoroughly enjoyed this. It can drag a little bit at 2 players. We were also...
When we played more, I don't feel like it did because we were looking at what you were doing and planning ahead because you do have all the tiles that you're going to start with on your turn because you draw that last one. So I didn't feel like it dragged as much with younger players who have that analysis paralysis. Okay, do I want to buy cards? What do they do? How will that affect me? Okay, do I want to spend? There's a little bit of that, like, I don't know what to do.
And also a lot can change between turns.
And with 4 people, that a lot changes.
So it's kind of hard to plan out your next turn fully until you see what everyone else has done because the board and the state of the board is going to change.
Yep.
Now, these I think there's enough here to take it off. We're done with this so I can mess up. These come off. There are 6 pieces on the board. They can be rotated 180 degrees, and they can all be shifted around. So while the board shape is the same every game, the layout of the map does change based on how you arrange that.
What we discussed is we have not played a game like this.
No, this is the mechanics of this game are you, and I'm sure it exists somewhere. I have not played it. I have not seen it. The mechanics are unique in just, again, not area control, area manipulation with bidding, and there's just so much to it. It was a lot of fun to play.
There's a lot to it, yet at the same time, it feels really approachable.
Yeah, the actual rules themselves are really simple. Play a tile, resolve anything that happens, draw a card or play a card for its ability.
Pretty much that's repeat.
But the nuance of the strategy is really there's a lot to it.
I want to say it surprised me. It didn't really surprise me because I the kind of games that Thunderworks had put out. And
it surprised me because I was expecting your standard tile laying area control with some sort of twist, but I was not expecting this.
And I got a good rundown with Keith when we were at Gen Con before we played it, so I kind of had a better idea than you did about how it actually played out. So that wasn't surprising to me, but I really did enjoy the game.
Yes.
So this is Dawn of Ulos from Thunderworks Games. It comes to Kickstarter. We'll leave links where you can check it out.
Yep. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.